Welcome to Performance Driven Living, the podcast where we question everything. We don't tiptoe around tough topics, we walk right into them. Not to provoke, but to get closer to what's real. You might not agree with everything you hear, and that's okay. The show isn't about being right, it's about being real. These conversations are meant to stretch your thinking, challenge assumptions, and spark something deeper. The views shared are those of our guests and may not reflect those of the host or team. And while we dive deep into health, performance, and transformation, this is not medical advice. Talk to your doctor before making changes to your health or lifestyle. Take what lands, leave what doesn't. But whatever you do, don't stop questioning.
We're here on the Performance Driven Living podcast, and we are going to be talking about one of my recent favorite topics, this whole conversation revolving around AI. And I laughed. Somebody recently said to me, I read this article about AI, and it said blah, 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 blah. And you know, my response to it was quite honest. And I'm like, well, by the time the article got published, it was probably outdated.
Yeah, it might have been written by AI.
It might have been written by AI, right? Like a confession. But I'm like, by the time it was even published, it was outdated. It's moving so fast. So, I mean, I'll be honest with you and tell you probably half the stuff we'll talk about here today will be outdated by the time this podcast ever launches, to be honest with you. But I am joined by, and I'm going to read this, Eric, because my team puts together these things that I couldn't possibly do. So it's become a ritual on here that I always read the introduction. Today we're joined by Eric Steigelfest, advertising leader and co-founder CEO of PurePlay, an AI-powered media intelligence platform built to help challenger brands outsmart, not outspend. For nearly a decade, he's helped brands maximize impact across CTV, OLV, and display, pairing creative problem solving with disciplined execution. With PurePlay, he connects creative, audience, and inventory into one actionable view so marketers can move faster with confidence. Outside of work, Eric's a proud girl dad, fitness and sports enthusiast, and lifelong Pokemon fan.
Yes, sir.
That mix of heart, curiosity, and rigor shows up in how he builds teams and products. Eric, welcome to Performance Driven Living.
Thank you so much for having me and for the intro.
I told you I would never be able to say that.
It was incredible. Whoever wrote that, I really appreciate you. That was
exactly
that was incredible.
Sometimes I get these intros on podcasts when I'm the guest, and I'm like, "Wow, that person sounds really cool. I want to meet him. Like, who is this guy?
Can I get a copy of that? I'm gonna need that.
Who is this guy? Well, Eric, I'm excited to talk to you today because, as I mentioned during our intro, like AI it's all over the place, and I work full time in marketing, as do you, and it keeps me awake at night because it's like it's exciting to see where it's going. It's also terrifying in a lot of ways because like business, the way the business has always been done, isn't being done that way anymore. And then it's a how do you react fastest?
Right.
How do you wiggle in? How do you stay competitive? And I'll say this, like as a thought leader in the space and as an agency owner, albeit I hate the word agency, but as an agency owner and as a I think thought leader and someone who's kind of on the forefront of what's going on with AI compared to a lot of people I know, it's equally, I say, half exciting and half terrifying.
Yeah.
But I'm not worried about it for me. I'll say I'm worried about it for a lot of other people.
Yeah.
People even on my own team, I'm like, guys, like, adapt or you're unemployed. Like
right.
The world is going to change here.
Right. Well, I think what it is right. There's two kinds of fear, and there's one that's the right kind of fear to be having right now. One is the fear of people who say, I don't want to use AI. Robots are going to take over the world. I'm scared to give my data anything personal. Right. That's a fear. My fear, the way I'm scared of AI, is falling behind. To your point, right? And again, every week it's something new, especially in the advertising industry. Something I'm excited to talk about. Ad context protocol coming out literally yesterday, and PurePlay being on the forefront of that. Not to get into it right away, but I think things like that, right? If I hear something that seems super exciting and I didn't know about it, I get some of that FOMO, and that's my fear. Is kind of falling behind, and there's levels to interacting with AI right now, and striving to be on the forefront, on the innovative edge is all we can do.
So many things to unpack when we talk about AI right now, but I want to start at the basics, and I want to start at the human psychology impact of AI, because I think
Yeah.
that's the part that's rattling people most, right? This is my prediction has been, which I'm probably a couple months, I should stop using these numbers, but I've been saying 12 to 18 months from now, there will be an economic reset that people are not going to know what to do, right? Because my belief is that since AI has become such a pervasive part of our culture, and it's been around 5-6 years, but in the last 12 months, like, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
Like, all of a sudden being AI something is almost like a necessity.
Yeah.
And I've been using the phrase that my own business, I'm relationship forward, but AI fueled.
Right.
That we have to be AI fueled. Like, the collaboration is the word I use with AI, because people are like, well, it's a great tool. I'm like, it's not a tool.
Right. Well, what happens is a lot of people are scared. I think it's the same people that have the bad type of fear about this, which is it's going to take over the world. I don't want to give it my data. You're going to fall behind, right? If you're not
100%.
you're not at the very least using ChatGPT to help you bounce ideas off of, or whether, Gemini, Perplexity, Claude, whatever you want to use. If you're not using those platforms, you're falling behind, because those are just things to drive basic efficiency. Go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with you. I totally agree with you. And the idea is that, like, things are happening and automations are happening and robot thinking is happening. And it's like, we can get a whole conversation about the singularity and Ray Kurzweil and all the other kind of stuff. But, sentient robots, maybe that's a different conversation. Yeah. But the reality is like, I find myself doing the work of about 6 to 10 people now.
Right. And
that's not even automations. That's just, I can work that fast and that smart now because I've learned how to make this my best friend in collaboration.
Yeah. And I think, that question comes up a lot as, recently launched PurePlay. Are you hiring? Are you growing? Are you doing all these things? Like, how hard is it? And it's a lot easier now than I'm sure it was a year ago. Because a year ago, AI was around, but was it adopted? And was I as, literate in prompt engineering as I am now? No. And I think something that is also important to recognize is that these AI tools are built to be the Robin to our Batman and support us. It's not to take over our jobs and do those things. Sure, certain jobs will be a lot easier for somebody, like yourself, again, to say, do I really need another copywriter, or can I work myself with ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude or whatever to get this right up? But it's really, right now, all these tools are positioned to support you rather than to say, I'm going to fully replace you. And nobody trusts them to fully replace you. So the way that you're positioning it is, AI-powered, relationship-led, right? That's how it has to be. There has to be that human level of, well, let me make sure this looks good, because certain things are wonky. And we can get into how that reflects, in creative and video and certain things, generative AI, it's at a certain point, but it's not all the way there.
It's not perfect. It's still, there's still a lot, but it's moving at such a rate that it's going to be indistinguishable in months.
Right.
Like that's the crazy thing right now. Like, and I laugh. We have a client who, if you're watching this, sorry, but like, who came to us the other day and was like, this image that's used on the website, it just looks too AI generated. We need to replace it. And I kind of laughed because I know where the image came from, and I'm like, that's a photograph.
Right.
Like, literally, that's a real photo. And in fact, that person uses it. It's a what I want to use, like an influencer endorsement. And I'm like, no, that's a photograph. And I know where the photograph came from, in fact. And look, here it is on another website where she also gives an endorsement. Like,
right.
Like the person, it's not that AI image looks so real. It was like that photograph looks so AI. And I'm like,
yeah.
Like, you're mistaking real photographs for AI photographs now. Like, I've seen AI be like, oh my, I thought that was a real photo. It's so good that we're mistaking real photos for being AI generated photos. And I'm like, I had somebody do that recently. There was a post that I had put on social media, real photograph, and somebody's just like, that's an AI photo. I'm like,
nope.
No, like that's an actual photograph. Like, sure, I've got AI photos that I've generated of myself. I'm like, nope, that one was real.
Yeah, I know. I fight this battle every day, and I wonder when it's going to shift back, because, like everybody should be, I work with, these chatbots to help me write, whether it's an email, whether it's, go-to-market material, and I kind of say, here's what I'm trying to convey, and make sure I can articulate that as clearly and effectively as possible without using the brain power to, type every letter at a time and give it some guide, right? And when I do that, I think, some of these chat bots have a tendency to like use a ton of the M dashes, right, in their format. And I'm like,
so funny.
Is it going to be obvious that I use chat to write this, and is that bad? I gotta like say no M dashes, like make it right. And in my head, I'm like, whoever's reading this, I don't want them to feel that I just was lazy and wrote it with AI. But in fact, I'm actually
you run an AI
the
company.
opposite of lazy. I want to work even harder to say I'm not just going to write this myself. I want to bounce some ideas, make sure everything is perfectly, packaged up as I want it to be, then pass it along to you. So I wonder at a certain point if everyone's going to be thinking like that. It's like, all right, well now I'm not going to try to hide the fact that I'm like working with AI to make this better.
I got an email last night from a client about some copy that I had sent over, some email drafts, and I'd sent them over and was like, I need you to review these, so on. She replied to me at like 9 o'clock last night, and I'm sitting at home watching a movie with my laptop, and her reply was, well, there's so many dashes that are in here. I see the dashes, and it looks like AI, and I think that really flags people for the use of AI. And I replied, and my reply to her was, well, I understand why you say that. Secondly, I don't believe that those types of flags are even happening anymore, because that you're talking 6 months ago technology.
Right.
Mike, and secondly, I use dashes when I actually write language.
Right.
And I also understand the proper use of a semicolon. And I use semicolons when I write also because I find them pretentious, semicolon.
Yeah.
And I also find pretension endearing.
Right.
And she replied to me and she's like, okay, that was really cute use of whatever. But at the same, I was like, the only reason people find it, and this is going to sound terrible, the only reason people find text that's using that type of punctuation to be, oh, this is AI generated, is because we've gotten so stupid that we forgot how to write properly.
Right. I think this is so much better than writing a lazy email with typos and this and that. It's like that person obviously just fired this off in 3 seconds, didn't think about it twice. If you get an email that you feel like is AI generated and it's not some cold outreach prompt, it's tailored to a conversation, you should be appreciative that this person cared enough to want to make this,
well, even that is like, I look at it and I'm like, okay, I'm excited that AI is actually using the King's English. Like, I'm tired of hearing everybody else's nonsense. Like, no, just because I send you an email that was spelled correctly doesn't mean it's AI. That's how I've written emails for the last 20 years. Yeah. But my team knows, as an example, I refuse to use an ampersand. Not in ad copy, not in an email. You will never see me use an ampersand because
I have a funny story for you on that. Sorry to cut you off.
Please.
I listened to this one podcast, which was like one of the episodes of the year. You should check it out if you haven't. Basically, it was like, I don't know if you've heard about this, but it's like the Dave and Buster's anomaly or phenomenon. And essentially, if you're using voice to text on an iPhone, and you say Dave and Buster's, it doesn't register because... and it's something to do with the ampersand. That's about all I can really dig into. You should go listen to the podcast. It's a crazy thing. And then I tried it myself. I'm sure it's still
This dude gives me an unnamed podcast with an indiscriminate story with no details and then tells me to look it up.
I wasn't prepared to talk about it, but you dropped the ampersand. I'm like, wait, that's crazy.
That's funny.
And I tested it on my phone. I'm like, I did it, and it didn't register. I'm like,
that's hilarious.
What? So test it when you get home. Maybe they fixed it.
Some of the AIs are pissing me off right now. I'm not going to lie, because like I was playing with some stuff with a client with ad creatives, and one of the clients has a digestive product, and I was trying to create an image of the digestive product in a tub. Like it's a plastic tub filled with powder that you make a drink mix.
Yeah.
And I was like, I need this and a roll of toilet paper. I just need an image of a person holding these two things next to each other. And Gemini's like, nope, we cannot create images that have anything to do with toilets or toilet paper, nothing related to bodily functions. And I get like this like shame message as if I'm trying to create porn on AI, right? And I'm like, it's a roll of damn toilet paper. I'm like,
well, I don't know if you saw yesterday, Sam Altman, I got names now, Sam Altman, OpenAI founder, said that they're rolling out, I don't know what the word was, but like erotic adult-enabled chatbots for those those people. When you want to create an image with toilet paper, but when you want to do some more dirty things.
Depends on your fetish, I guess.
Yeah. I think that happened to me when I tried to create my fantasy football team logo. They said it was a little too vulgar, but.
Hilarious. But seriously, I was like, it's a roll of toilet paper. Like it's a digestive product. Like literally, their tagline is enhances regularity, and I'm like. It made sense to me. But here's the deal. Like with AI, one of the things that I look at, like I said, I'm 6 to 10 times, and it could be exponentially more than that, more productive than I've ever been. I am brainstorming. I am having creative meetings with my AI.
Yeah.
And I have had this conversation, and much to the chagrin of my own team, because I think they're tired of hearing me. Well, they've been tired of me before AI, but
Yeah.
but I'm sure they're tired of hearing about it, because it doesn't matter what question I ask. You know, my answer is, don't tell me you didn't know.
Right.
And if the answer is I didn't know, we're going to go rounds on that, because we live in a world where not knowing is not an excuse.
Right.
Like, if you're not trying to get better, you will be left behind, because it is a world that, and I'll say, like, you're an athlete, you understand this. Like, imagine the case that you were on the field and there were all of these hacks to make, I mean, I'd be running the Super Bowl. Like, there's no questions asked that if there was a hack that was able to do anything. And so, Eric, I'm going to pivot here, because I could go off on that all day long, but I mentioned this 12 to 18 months.
Yeah.
My belief is that the smart people are getting smarter right now, and the dumb people are getting dumber.
Yeah.
And I
I think
believe
that's fair to say.
Yeah, and as crazy as it is, because I think the dumb people getting dumber, I literally base that off of, and I know I've mentioned it on this show before, but there were recent studies done by MIT, and they were actually showing that people who go to ChatGPT as a first line of defense, and whatever answer it has, like, you know, what's the capital? They go there, they do this kind of stuff. They're actually noticing that after months of doing this, because it's not been years, they were already noticing. So think about that. This is not after years of use, because it hasn't existed that long. Like, this is only after weeks and months that people have been doing this. They're actually noticing entire regions of the brain that are grayed out and not even lightening up, indicating atrophy on an fMRI. So fMRI scans are showing that literally people are dealing with brain atrophy. To the contrary, however, so that does not scare me about using ChatGPT, because my thinking, honestly, I feel like I've taken a limitless pill.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I'm awake at night, you know, almost ashamed of all of the things that I didn't do that I could have done with my day, because I feel invincible in so many ways. And I'm like, but they're also noticing that people who are using AI to unlock all of these different things are finding that they're automating the parts of life that are trivial.
Right.
And doubling down on the areas that are requiring greater usage and greater problem solving and greater executive functioning. And those people are unlocking parts of their brain that they've never seen before. Like, that's nuts to me.
Right. No, I think, you know, on one hand, you could say, oh, you know, kids these days in class, they could just throw their homework into ChatGPT and, you know, get these answers. I think that creates different problems for, okay, how are teachers going to make this, you know, AI proof, or how are you going to, whatever. I think
have theories on that, but go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about a lot of things, but no, I completely agree. And I think, you know, it's, if anything, it doesn't have to be when you're at work, you know, we're at work in the ad tech world. It could be, you know, hey, I want some relationship advice about this. Am I thinking logically? Like, let me think through this. Am I 100%. Being reasonable? Here's the situation. Like, no matter what, that's just one example. It could be any aspect of your life. And I think, you know, you don't necessarily have to, you know, tap into the same amount of time that it took to cross-check things or do research, to your point, on things that are trivial. Yeah, if I want to go on Google and look up a stat or a fact, then I could just do it more quickly on chat, and that's not taking any more or less brain power. So, yeah.
Well, you mentioned college. So I've got a good friend of mine is actually a professor down at the University of Miami, and I spent most of my...
I went to the U.
There you go. Well, I spent most of my career as a college professor and worked in education for most of my career, or a good portion of it anyway. I suppose I've been doing this for most of my career now. I should stop using that phrase. But anyways, a lot of my years were spent in higher education. So, like, I'm very familiar with academic pedagogy and how we do this. And I'm like... I was having a conversation with her the other day, and we were talking about how do you have people go do term papers to finish school? Like, that was like the capstone of every class was writing a paper. And I'm like, well, sure, I can do it on my drive to the gym, you know, write a paper on ChatGPT and email it to you, right? Like, this is easy stuff now. And I'm like, we're going to get back to people having to do oral defense for a grade. Like, I'm going to have to sit in a room with you and ask you, to answer questions for me
Yeah.
and critically think through problems that I put in front of you and watch you do, or essays where you're going to have to handwrite answers without technology. Like the education system, you couldn't pay me to go back and do that nowadays, by the way, because like I remember when plagiarism detection was a big tool.
Yep.
Like all of a sudden now it's not even plagiarism. Like this is original thought.
Yeah.
It's just not yours.
Right. No, and that, I think there's like, AI bot detectors that are coming out. I've seen, they're trying to keep up with the, hey, well, the students are going to be leveraging this to write, and the teachers are going to be leveraging this to audit. It's crazy. But yeah, and they're going to also, when they do that, they're going to have to make sure that, students aren't wearing glasses, because now with the Gen 2 of Ray-Ban and Oakley Meta, it's basically like Ned's Declassified, Somebody asks you a question and you're like, let me wait a second, and then it pops up in your eye and in your ear what to say.
Well,
like
so literally,
that's real.
Literally, it's going to turn into that I can be on stage and imagine the entire audience in their underwear.
Yeah.
Like,
it's like X-ray goggles.
You could actually do this
generated,
now. AI generated X-ray goggles and people in their underwear now. Like that's actually going to be a thing. Who thought? So my question, I'm going to frame this in there because education to me is going to be, it's going to be a weird thing. And I'm going to say this, and everyone who knows me knows that I collected degrees. But they mean nothing to me anymore, because the reality is that it used to be that if you had the degree, there was a respect for your ability to think, there was a respect for your knowledge base. And nowadays, anybody with a phone has access to the exact same thinking, to the exact same knowledge base.
Yeah.
Now, I would arguably say that it doesn't mean that everything that you're getting is accurate, so you still need to have the acumen to know what is and what isn't good,
right?
Which we'll get into
Prompt
about marketing.
And,
prompt engineering, but also just being able to have a bullshit filter.
Yeah.
So that being said, there's definitely something to be said, and we'll talk about that with marketing, but education anymore to me almost seems pointless. Because there's still the academic side of, academics for the sake of academics just doesn't do it for me anymore.
Yeah.
Because I think what's going to happen is I'm almost at the point that I'm like, sure, if a kid goes and gets a bachelor's degree and uses AI to do the entire thing, that's fantastic. He's going to get fired within 2 weeks on the job if you don't know what you're doing.
Right.
Like,
you're
going to get fired.
I think what's becoming obsolete is the way that, schooling and testing and studying to get a degree was done in the past. Like you have a textbook, we're going to read chapters, you're going to read through it, and then you're going to formulate your own thoughts and write papers and take tests. Like that was going out the window, when I was in high school and college. You got things like Quizlet, and you're doing, digitally focused testing to accelerate those things. But now it's like, okay, the education vehicles need to evolve because,
right.
And I have a couple friends that are driving innovation at a company called Subject, and they're really focused on, education and teaching lessons in an AI native world. And, you mentioned girl dad, our daughter's almost 11 months old, and we're hyper focused on like, well, what kind of schooling do we want for her? Do we want to put her in this? And, Anna doesn't want her to have screen time. And I'm like, I get that for developmental reasons, but also I don't want her to fall behind on, being able to be digitally literate and leverage these kinds of things. So I think there's, some
He's talking about an 11-month-year-old being digitally literate, if you missed that. If you missed that, just to point it out.
Listen, no, but I think it's no, but back to your point about is, a degree may seem useless or obsolete at this point. I think it's going to catch up the way that, the knowledge and the education and the, material is delivered has to evolve based on the tools that are, at all the students' disposal. And yeah, maybe it's going to be more of, hey, no education allowed in this room. It's like one of those rooms in a movie where all the heroes lose their superpowers if they're in this chamber. But maybe that's how it's going to have to be when it comes to testing. To say, I don't care if you're using ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude or any kind of assistant or certain glasses when you're in certain situations that are going to that you're going to have access to when you're in real life situations. But when you're in a meeting with the client giving a presentation, you better know how to think on the spot and pivot and critically think.
Yes. And that's where I think, so we talk about, well, how is education going to change? And I'm going to up level that conversation and say, sure, we can talk about, you're not going to be able to wear glasses. You're not going to be able to have a computer.
If you're blind, without them.
But I also don't believe that we progress through exclusion. I think we need to step above the current education system and say, it's just different now.
Yeah.
And it's not about how do we protect the current system, because protecting the current system would be you're not allowed to use a computer. You're not allowed to turn into paper. You can't use Google Glasses. Like,
here's what I'd argue, though. When I went to college, University of Miami, best school on earth.
It's the wrong U of M.
Yeah.
I went to the real U of M.
Oh,
go
okay,
ahead.
okay.
Go blue.
Well, I was literally a tour guide when I was at UM, so we could fight about school spirit later. But I think more value that I got through my college experience was, sure, I got value in the classroom and learned about these subjects, and it was great. But I got more value in the opportunity to be on my own and get shit done. I can be the president of this club and this organization and actually make impact and create these organizations and host events and work with brands and do real life tangible things that you can kind of make happen in this setting. And I think, when it gets to higher education, it can be the same type of thing. You're around these like-minded people, and if you're able to kind of drive an impact, sure, at the end of the day, you need to get certain grades and you have a degree and it shows what kind of rank you were. But I think those things are becoming more obsolete. And it's how are you able to make an impact? How are you able to, drive the most value based on your situation? And so I think, that's just becoming more evident that the value of education is not necessarily just on paper and the books and the grading system, and it goes beyond that.
I'm going to argue and say that you're just going to see a collapse of the entire education system. Like I just don't think the education system, the way it exists now, continues to exist. I'm old enough to remember going to school, college even, before Google. So I went to school before the internet,
right.
And definitely before Google. And I mean, writing papers because you had to go check out books in the library.
Yep.
And when Google came along, I remember the panic that this was going to cause in the education system, because now you can go find anything you want. And it's like, sure.
Yeah.
It's like, and so I think AI is another version of that, but I think it's different.
Yeah.
And the reason it's different is because Google didn't think. Google was able to search. Google was a really fast Dewey Decimal System. And yes, I actually understood the Dewey Decimal System.
Right. But it's pulling from data sources, and if the data source doesn't exist, it can't help you. Whereas, ChatGPT can more critically think and say, hey, help me solve all the math problems on this sheet. And it can go, pull some formulas and run that for you. But I think what will become, available to maybe teachers are questions and things that you can kind of propose to students that you may not be able to solve with ChatGPT. If it's like, hey, in your voice, blah, 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 which you could, of course, ask, your chat bot, hey, write this in my voice. But I think there are going to be ways, to your point, things are going to have to level up to keep up with the times. Sorry to cut you off, but as they did when Google came out. It's like, all right, can't just ask basic research questions that you're going to have to read and memorize from a textbook. It's going to be more focused on critically thinking in a world where all of this is available. Right? It's not asking questions that you can solve with a calculator. It's not asking questions that you could get a better answer by asking, ChatGPT to help you.
In education, there's this pyramid that we talk about, that bachelor's degrees are where you learn the vocabulary. So high school and whatnot is where we train you on how you're going to learn once you leave here.
Right.
So you learn the skills. Bachelor's degree is where you learn the vocabulary. Master's degrees, the graduate level work is really training you on how to synthesize two thoughts together. And postmaster's or doctorate work is where you learn to create new knowledge. And I believe, and this has been my theory for a while, that Google kind of replaced the need for the vocabulary.
Yeah.
Because I can look up anything anytime.
Right.
So when Google started, there was no need for me to remember the year that Sorbonne's Oxley became a thing, right? Like I can go Google it, no big deal.
Yeah.
And when I was teaching, I used to tell my students, I don't care what you can memorize. I want you to be able to think, which meant I was expecting almost graduate level work out of what would have been an undergraduate task. ChatGPT, sure, we're able to look things up, but we were always able to do that since Google. What I believe that AI is able to do now is AI is able to take and synthesize thought. Mm-hmm. How is this related to this? And draw me a parallel between these two things. Show me how this process is in this environment. Show me how my voice can tell this story. It's taking two disparate things and able to merge them into a cohesive thought using that critical thinking, which, by the way, is what is taught in graduate level courses. It is requiring that the humans, I mean, if you think about it this way, anybody with a master's degree or less, ChatGPT can replace. Like you have to be thinking in the top echelon of human intelligence at this point to do anything that a bot can't. So, I mean, one of the, like, I need to be able to create knowledge. Creativity is still a human feature.
Right.
And as AI is getting really good at it, but again, that's prompt engineering that's causing that creativity. So there's still human inputs. Yeah. But, you know, I don't take a product bottle and say, here, give me an image that sells this because I'm going to get some wonky stuff. I have to tell it, like, here's my demographic. Here's like, all of this stuff plays in, but it becomes that ability to create knowledge and to create creativity. And one step further, have human interaction that makes us different. And my belief is that this top of the pyramid here is where humans are going to live, or they're going to be way down here.
Right. Well, first of all, what you said is perfect. Like I 100% agree with the way.
I want an outtake on that.
No, you got to clip that. Whenever you said, you better clip that. When
need
you
an
said,
outtake on that one.
When it can help you, think together. But yeah, it's not necessarily creating new knowledge at this point, right? Which maybe that's an area to get to.
Right.
And you mentioned creativity. That's kind of what we're focused on. Is creative is something that is kind of unstructured in a lot of ways. And when you use the word creative in advertising, you're talking about the actual spot.
Output, yeah.
You're talking about the video or the display banner that you're serving, on the connected TV or in an article. And historically, it's like, okay, we can look at these things. We can look at, the talent that's being used. We can look at the promotion and all these numbers, but it's still kind of unstructured because it's a video and all these things. But now, there's a lot of measurement to be brought to that with AI, with multimodal analysis, which is a fancy way to say we're going to scan all the modes of this creative, of this video. We're going to pull out the transcript, the audio, the storytelling format, what kind of audiences are being featured, what kind of audiences are being spoken to, what's the call to action, and pull out all those signals to better inform, well, who should we be targeting, with this exact creative spot, and across which inventory, should we be running this spot to maximize the value of the message that we are delivering. And I think, one other thing to go back to what you were talking about, creativity is something that, maybe AI is still getting there on. You can kind of work with these AI bots to say, well, what is something that makes a viral or a, attention-grabbing post or video or this or that? And it can kind of, again, bring structure to some of this creativity or some of this abstract thinking and understand, well, what makes thinking abstract? Like, what are these leaders and innovators doing to create new knowledge, and how can I tap into that to help create new knowledge? So I think that's the next level, but I don't think it's there yet.
I agree with you. And my urging to any human is find the ways that the bot can't replace you. What is it that you're bringing to the table that the bot can't do? Because anything that the bot can do is going to become a capitalistic conversation real quick.
Yeah.
I have no reason to employ people that I can get an automation to do. And people keep finding ways of putting themselves in the middle of a process. And I'm like, I don't need you in the process. Like, you're missing the point. And I think we're seeing resistance because some people just can't think outside of what's going on there. But to your point, in marketing, we talk about that synthesis of information, and here's a medium, and 40-year-old women who are unmarried and have children watch this TV show, whatever. Right. And here's a creative. What I do love about what AI is able to do is it's able to say, all right, this creative mirrors this audience, or this creative does not appeal to this audience, and it can predict that that's going to happen prior to having to spend the money to get the zero return on ad spend.
Right.
Because in days gone by, you take I always say marketing's a really good guess. It's educated guessing. That is, I think this is going to work with this audience, but I don't know until the numbers show us.
Yeah.
And then you go run it, and when the numbers come back and say, nobody bought anything, you're like, okay, well, that wasn't the right creative. But is it the wrong creative, or was it the wrong audience?
Right.
Because I'll give you an example. So I used to do a lot of TV buying, and we knew the audience. I'll give you a great example. We have a client right now that uses an animated character, and they have a sleep product.
Yeah.
And the sleep product is the spokesperson for the sleep product is an animated sheep. And it's a whole deal about counting sheep and so on and so forth.
Cute.
And we actually animated him in wearing a red hat that says "Make sleep great again." Okay,
So a little controversial, but attention grabbing.
Only to half the population.
Right.
To the other half of the population, it's actually very funny. So to the point,
right.
I can academically say, okay, red hat's saying "Make sleep great again." If I were to put that as a TV commercial on Fox News, is going to be "They're one of us."
Right.
If I put that on CNN, I'm probably going to get hate mail, if not Molotov cocktails.
Yeah.
Right.
Bad Yelp reviews. Yeah.
But it's the intellect of knowing that this is going to match that. The issue is that's a pretty obvious point of differentiation. If AI is able to analyze, because you're working in ads, so I'm going to go into PurePlay and talk about how AI is affecting marketing. If AI is able to look at a creative and say, this creative based on these elements of the creative, and that could be the text, that could be the images, that could be the messaging, anything that we're talking about, it can predict failure that you don't need to spend the money to fail in order to get the learning.
Right.
You can actually predict the learning faster than having to human intuit. Is that the word I'm looking for? How that's going to pan out. And we can guess really good.
Yeah.
But if you're able to data, you're not having to collect data over time. You're able to get a better guess forward.
Right. And what we're able to do now, bringing structure to these creatives, is look at your brand's creative and look at all your competitor brands, their creatives, do that deep multimodal analysis across the board and understand how you can pull out signals that are going to, show you that these audiences are going to resonate better with this creative versus your competition's message, or vice versa. Where can we really lean in there and validating those things through measurement? Once the campaign is live, what kind of KPI are you trying to drive, and map back which of these creative assets across these audience segments actually drove the outcomes that we're looking for. So just yesterday, the ad context protocol platform, or really marketplace, our ecosystem, it was launched across the industry, and it's extremely exciting. And PurePlay is actually going to be launching one of the first campaigns ever through that workflow. And what that's doing is essentially encouraging one ecosystem where all the data partners, all the inventory partners are bringing everything to one table, so that buyers can say, I want to buy more accurately. I want to have less waste with my ad spend and be as efficient as possible. So instead of saying, okay, I have all these different siloed elements of my media activation plan that I have to do separately, I have to go grab data segments from a data store, whether that be LiveRamp or another provider, and say, I want to target, those that are in market for athleisure. And then I type in athleisure in my data store, and there's 150 segments from a bunch of different providers, and I have to decide based on who knows what kind of knowledge, which of those are the best and most relevant toward my KPIs and what I'm trying to drive, who I'm trying to serve my creative message to. And then I have to do the same thing when I'm sourcing inventory. So is it better for me to run on Netflix or Hulu or Paramount Plus or HBO Max at the ultra premium level? Is it better for me to run across HGTV, Food Network, Tennis Channel at the kind of mid-level? And then is it better for me to run across Pluto TV or Tubi or another fast channel at the kind of efficiency level, as I like to call it? Mm-hmm. And what you're able to do now through this new ecosystem is really have all that data at your fingertips, instruct these AI agents, this is exactly what our goals are, and they're able to kind of scan across all these audience segments, across all these inventory segments, do things to say, well, this audience segment has X scale and it's going to cost you X CPM, and it's 83% accurate based on these down funnel signals that we're collecting from these publishers. So I know that goes a long way, but essentially you're able to take a lot of the silos away, bring everything to the table so that there's less waste, because that publishers want less waste too. They want to sell inventory that's going to perform better based on outcomes, based on KPIs. So
well, because that's the lifetime value of their customer, which is the advertiser.
Exactly. And when you are able to now connect all the dots, and you could say, oh, well, this ad from Paramount Plus drove, or all my, the couple million impressions I served on this publisher drove a conversion rate of 2% versus this publisher drove, 0.5%. I want to go in that way. So there's incentive for everybody. And yeah, on the data side and on the publisher side, it's a way for you to say, my data and my inventory is more easily accessible to these buyers. And the buyers are like, great, I don't have to go to 20 different publisher partners to source inventory. I can just look on one marketplace and understand, where I should move forward based on my creative and what it speaks to, based on what my competition is doing. So we're kind of trying to, I guess to sum it all up, we're able to bring more data to agencies and advertisers to inform why, based on my creative, one, is it good to go, or do I need to kind of level it up and create different versions to serve to different audiences? And then once I have my creative solidified, how can I maximize the value of that creative by pulling out those signals to inform this audience segment, informed by my creative and informed by my KPIs, is most likely to resonate well and take the action that I want them to take. And then same thing on the inventory side. Is this high attention inventory that we can measure with various third-party partners? Is it contextually relevant to my creative message? And again, is it likely, based on mapping back ad exposure to attribution, likely to drive the outcomes that I want? And so our goal, as you mentioned at the beginning, is to really unify that creative audience and inventory strategy to maximize outcomes and efficiency.
So many words there.
Yeah, sorry. Probably hard to follow, so that's on me.
No, it's good. My question to you, yes, I follow what you're saying because I work in the space. And people who don't are probably like, what the hell did that just happen?
Yeah. I could have probably broken that down a lot more simply.
No. It's good stuff, but you got my head spinning on it though, because the question that I want to know is, then what do the humans do? You just told me everything about the automation.
The humans create the brief, they create the goals, they create the budgets, they create some of these things, right? It's not like those things can just be made out of thin air. There are decisions that need to be made, there are approvals that need to be given, and there's still that human touch that needs to, have influence. And what happens is, you mentioned it's AI with the relationship focus. A lot of times what still happens is these buyers are not given autonomy. There's somebody on the brand side that has a relationship with a publisher and say, we want to run at least X% across that publisher. So you can have some autonomy, but a lot of what you're doing is just executing, what I'm telling you to do as the brand, which I'm sure you experience a lot of and have a lot of fun when that happens. But I think, it's still, none of these tools, at least that we're leveraging, are being built to replace humans. I think they're being built to support.
They're replacing humans.
They're replacing some of the operations, absolutely. Ad ops and some of those, again, copywriting.
There is
some
no
of those
traffic
things.
manager anymore.
Yeah, but you still do, because what if that new AI tool makes a big mistake and traffics the wrong creative because it had an ampersand in it and it couldn't, like the Dave & Buster's thing, and it couldn't pick it up. So those things are still there. So no advertisers, I mean, maybe some are, but most advertisers aren't ready to say, you know what, just do it all with AI. I don't care. I still want somebody keeping eyeballs on my campaign, how it performs, and keeping an eye on those optimizations. I think, it's still designed, at least with the tools that, most of the industry is using, to be, again, that Robin to your Batman as the one acting and ultimately decisioning based on that, hey, okay, well, I have the relationship with these stakeholders that I need to kind of ensure that I'm, answering to and operating on behalf of.
Well, and so working in the ad space, and I'm fascinated by everything AI can do. But I'm always, what I'm always working on is what unique value do I bring to a client? Because why would a client not fire me and just go to AI?
Yeah.
Right. And that's a question I have to constantly be thinking of, because I'm like, what would stop them from doing that? So I'm always looking for what is the value proposition of working with me.
Yeah.
Because it's not because I'm a better graphic designer than Gemini, and it's not because I'm a better video editor than Opus, and it's not because I'm a better copywriter than ChatGPT. Maybe all of those things, but it comes at a cost if you're hiring a human. There's not a lot of cost if you're working with AI. The challenge that I'm always looking for is in this world of automation, in this world of artificial everything, I believe that humans are still longing for human interaction.
Absolutely.
That there is a need for relationship. There is a need to look at a creative, and while there may be multiple touch points and different multimodal data points that are taking place within a banner ad, I'm still looking at it and going, but does it elicit the emotion that I would expect a buyer? And would a buyer feel that.
Right.
Because I believe that we can script a lot of things.
Right.
And we can, say, insert image of woman crying at funeral.
Right.
But does the image actually make me feel something? And
I think it trickles down from the top, right? And if AI is the one at the top creating the budgets and creating the brief, and then AI is the one activating, really just executing what that instruction is, and then that, formulates a creative, it formulates a message, and then it serves to an audience and across inventory that AI instructed it to a human audience, there's going to be that lack of feel and interaction.
Problem.
So I think that's where you can bring that value is, well, I know certain things about, I know what I know. I know how to create certain knowledge, again, that maybe AI can't.
Well, and with my team, I'm always talking to them. I'm just like, guys, I get that you want to automate this, and I get that ChatGPT wrote this, and I get that Claude did this, and sure, I get it. I'm glad about it. I'm happy that we're leaning into this type of stuff. And at the same time, when I get an ad creative that I'm like, what does that even say? That doesn't even make sense to me,
Maybe me describing that.
No, but it's more of I'll get a headline, and I'm like, okay, I get the fancy words, but what does that mean? And then people kind of stumble on it. And it's I'm constantly going, guys, if it doesn't make sense to you, it doesn't make sense to a buyer either.
Right.
Be human. And my takeaway from this is that the more artificial intelligence becomes a part of our daily lives, the more incumbent it is on each of us to be as human as we've ever been.
Yep.
We are reversing time on humanity because we are having to get back to face-to-face conversations. We are having to get back to people learning relational skills first. We went through generations of kids that were taught everything about how to use a computer and didn't know how to have a conversation.
Yeah.
I genuinely think we're at a point right now that we're almost regressing back. And I think it's progress, truthfully, but it's we're erasing some of those mistakes, getting back to being as human as possible so that we can harness this incredibly logical, intelligent platform.
Yep.
But the phrase that I use with my team all the time is do the things that only the humans can do.
Well, there are still a lot of those things because if you think about it, when you're leveraging AI tools to help you with anything, data-driven, if you're missing a column or there's a letter wrong and something's not aligned, it's going to spark up and not be able to compute what you put in. So that's still a thing, right? That still exists. Whereas, if you were to analyze that, sure, it may take you a hell of a lot longer to analyze, but you would say, oh, that column is mislabeled. Let me tweak that.
But that department used to have 5 people. Now it has 1. That's my point.
Absolutely.
And that is, entire agencies are firing their entire copywriting team and keeping the one best prompter.
Right.
To
now
review
has a job and make sure it sounds
correct.
Human enough to collaborate with AI. And like you said, that person's 5 times as productive.
Absolutely. The question is not if somebody will still have a job. The question is, where do the other 9 bodies go?
Gotcha.
Because there's not going to be enough work for all of the humans if all the humans are just babysitting the AI.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, I believe that it is incumbent on us for our own survival, and I mean as individuals, not as a world, but this whole idea, and I won't get into depopulation and all the other stuff, but the reality is that as this becomes a more pervasive part of everyday life, the need for the cashier at the grocery store is going away. Yep. Self-checkout lanes. I remember years and years ago, I was standing in line at a Target and the cashier was like, well, we've got all the automated lines open. I'm like, yeah, but I believe in keeping humans in jobs.
Well,
I'm standing in the line so that you can check me out because that way you still have a job. And I went, it bothers me that the customers are doing all of their own cashiering because now someone's unemployed because of that. And she looked and she went, no one's lost a job over that. And I'm like, I'm just looking like, sweetheart, there's 2 cashiers at Target now.
Yeah. I think with COVID really accelerated a lot of this.
Totally.
And when, we're all forced to work from home for a while and everything's on video call. I remember I'm an ad tech salesperson. I'm out in the field doing events, doing all these things. And I remember the first time I was back in person with partners and clients, it was like, this is so refreshing to have that human interaction and that, everybody still loves that. And the same thing if you're grocery shopping, like, you may be in a mood where you don't want to talk to anybody. Okay, then I want to go to the self-checkout, but maybe I want to have a nice interaction. I think people still crave that, as you mentioned. So yeah, sometimes it goes so far that it goes all the way back. And I think that's happening.
And again, I love what you're doing with ad tech. I love what we're doing with ad tech, different, but at the same time, like both leveraging this new collaborative, entity, I suppose. I don't know what to call it anymore. Yeah. But we're harnessing this intelligence to get greater outputs in faster times. And the outputs that we're getting to are amazing. I will say the people who don't know what they're doing with it are just getting to the mistakes faster.
Right.
I mean, all they're doing is just making 8 times the number of mistakes.
Well, that's exactly why humans, you still need maybe a team of more than one. Because what if that one is bad and it's just, amplifying the shittiness?
But I remember market research being a month-long project, and now market research is an hour. Like, I can go pull everything on every brand that I'm competing against and pull out their entire history and challenge, and stick it all on a competitive chart.
Yeah. And for roles that aren't creatively focused, absolutely. But I think, busy work is going to be gone. Right?
Yeah, and it literally becomes a matter of, as we become so artificial with our intelligence that it is, again, I'll just go back and say it's incumbent on the humans to do the things that only the humans can do, that the ability to think is going to be much more important than it is to memorize.
Right.
And the people who are trying to just proceduralize their jobs, like, I had this conversation with my own team, in fact, on Tuesday, and it was, guys, like, we're trying to automate things and you're trying to write the process for your job. Here's the problem. If your job in the very near future has a process, you don't have a job.
Right. Well,
if there's a process to your job is going to be automated because there is a process.
Yeah, and I'm glad you bring that up because I think it's even more valuable than ever to be a people person and have that, because I have friends now that are very leaned into AI and they may be on the innovative edge and pushing and pushing and pushing, but every word they speak is being listened to by AI and they just rely on it for everything and maybe not do a lot of the critical thinking themselves. Then you get into a room where it's important to be able to think on your feet, and that's not happening. All right, it's like the Ready Player One world where you never leave your house and you're just in a an artificial world, right? A virtual reality, I guess. I think that feels a lot more real for people that are leaning maybe too far in and maybe, not critically thinking alongside the interactions they're having. So I think at the end of the day, people-facing roles that, relationships, as you put it at the beginning, right? AI-led, relationship-driven, I think is, or something like that, is the way that you can differentiate. Because you're going to still have that human touch, that warmth that AI just can't replicate right now.
I'm so grateful to have been born when I was born. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, I was born into the wrong place. Like,
right.
No. I'm so grateful to be born when I was born because I believe that there is a complete tear down of the economy that's going to happen because this is separating the hows and the how-nots kind of situation. It's like all of that's going to happen. But I'm like, I am young enough that I'm adapting faster than people half my age.
Right.
Because I'm smart enough to be able to do that, and I see where things are going because I've had enough years to see the writing on the wall, not so many years that I'm not able to adapt.
Right. How do I work this thing?
Correct. Like it's not that. In fact, I tell my team all the time, and I'm like, you should be ashamed of yourself. I'm twice your age, and I'm teaching you about technology.
Right.
But it's like, I'm so happy to have been in a space where I feel like I'm standing in both worlds. Like I've done traditional media buying, and I work on digital all the time. Like I've stood in both of these worlds. I know where the connections are, and I'm smart enough to see where we're going, but also experienced enough to see where we've been. And I think people my dad's age, who's super smart and leaning into this as much as he can, but it's like he owns an agency also, and it's all very traditional media.
Yeah.
And in that traditional media side, he's like, how is this going to, like, digital? Yeah, we get it.
Right.
But it's like he'll charge $100,000 for a TV commercial, and I laugh because I'm like, I could have done that on a Saturday afternoon.
Right.
Like, because it's just everything is so different. And
but he may be selling back to somebody who says, I don't trust AI. I don't want you to be using it at all. I want 100%. You to vow that you're not using it. And then it's, okay, well, we're both traditional, and
correct.
That's going to appeal to one another. So I think, and even if you are using it, like say, maybe AI can't comprehend certain things that, you're able to because you were around before it ever existed, or obviously I was around before it existed, but like, you know what I'm talking about? I think that's a huge advantage. And again, to feel those emotions, those human connections that you can understand, all right, I have to position this a certain way in order to have the outcome that I want.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like, I believe that I'm the greatest generation. But truthfully, I mean, I look at it and I say, like, but there's a time for being human. There's a time for technology. There's a time for all of this kind of stuff. It's very ecclesiastical in that respect, right? Like, to everything, there's a time and a season.
Yep.
And we're just in this. And I'm grateful personally to be able to have seen the change or the coming change of both of those seasons, and remember what the world was like before Google, and remember getting off the couch to change the channel on the television.
Right.
And remembering the days before cell phones and having to like pull over to the side of the road to make a phone call on a payphone. Like, I remember those days, and not to date myself, but things are changing.
Yes.
And it's like, but there was a certain level of relationship that had to happen. There was a come home when the street lights go on kind of world. And now parents are trying to push the kids out of the house to even see sunlight.
Right.
Like, there's a shift taking place. I'm grateful to be in the middle, but I'm grateful for people like you who are significantly younger than me, but have that relational skill and have what I'll call the EQ, that emotional intelligence to be able to understand that AI is a great way of seeing the future, but it doesn't replace the human interaction of just solid relationship and face-to-face time and trust factors and that sort of stuff. So thank you for helping stand in that gap in your generation to be able to see the difference between those two things. And I think that's where we as a society need to be, is more people that get both sides of this conversation and not one or the other.
Yeah.
They're not the fear AI because the world is changing, and they're not the stay in the basement and I never have to talk to humans again.
Right. I think it's like an ironic balance of being able to effectively communicate, to use advertising as an example. When this started, it was print and billboards and, traditional, and then it became television and radio, and then it became digital with programmatic buying and, able to do real-time bidding and auctioning. And now it's agent-led by AI, and then, it's not necessarily like buyers and sellers have to interact. It's the buying agent and the selling agent are interacting. I think to be able to articulate that effectively, you need to be able to understand what it was like when that first phase was happening.
Yeah.
So I think that ability to humanize those things is a way to be more effective in communication.
Well, and I hope the humans still get to run the world, because I like being human.
No iRobot.
Maybe I'd rather be a penguin or something. I don't know, but
or a dog.
Yeah, seriously, golden retriever. Just let life go. Eric, I appreciate you being here, having these conversations. The AI conversation, we could probably talk about it for 10 hours and not run out of topics, because it's so expansive. And as I've said, by the time this even goes on air, when people get a bot to edit it and a bot to post it. But the reality is, by the time this even goes, some of the stuff we talked about is probably outdated, right? Like, we're talking this like latest, last weekend when Sora 2 launched, and it's like, but it's all watermarked. I'm like, for how long?
Yeah.
Like, for how long?
Oh, it's already being used, Yeah,
it's already ridiculous at the amount of things it can do. And I mean, personally, it's really up-leveled the memes.
Oh, yeah.
So, totally on board with that.
They get me for the first 3 seconds. I'm like, wait, what? And then I realize.
Meme game,
but soon
strong.
It's going to be you don't realize.
Yeah, like, it is a reality that is becoming, and can get into all the conspiracy theories on it, but the reality of what's going on is like, it's almost becoming indistinguishable. And we're moving towards this singularity where the artificial intelligence is not going to be artificial intelligence at all anymore. It's going to have some other name that's just going to be this other thing. Well, we used to call it the World Wide Web. Like, nobody says that anymore. Now it's just the internet.
Right.
It wasn't something. It was like, AI is just going to become a thing.
Right.
And it's no longer.
It's like the umbrella, and there's all these kinds of things. Like, there's different versions of it. There's agentic, and there's large language models, and there's all these kinds of things.
It's just going to be intelligence. The intelligence, and we're just the
robots,
humans. Yeah, I mean the robots when they take over the world. I just here's my biggest caution to everybody: always say please and thank you to your GPT, because when the robots take over the world, make sure they remember you fondly. That's my initiative. This is my contribution.
That's a perfect way to go out. I
always say please and thank you. So Eric, thank you so much. I'll say this human to human, but maybe he's not human. Maybe you're a bot. I don't know. Anyways.
I would have a more cleaner shave if I was.
That's probably true. Dude, it's so good having you here today. Look forward. Maybe we can do another conversation getting deeper as this stuff starts to flesh out and we talk more about how AI and marketing get together. But I will tell you, Eric is the CEO of a company called PurePlay. We'll put all the notes down below. If anybody actually works in advertising, works in marketing, or works and owns a marketing department, perhaps at a large model that's looking for a new way of dealing with programmatic buying, that's what this guy specializes in. So take a look at the notes, learn more about that. We'll put Eric's socials and his company socials and everything down there below so that you can go follow him, see what's going on in the AI world. And until then, keep it real. See what I did there?
I love it.
That's good. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for Performance Driven Living. We'll see you soon. Bye.